The Hindu Kush Mountains don't care about your rank, don't care about your medals, don't care if you're 5'3" or 6'4". At 8,500 feet, with the temperature dropping to 32 degrees and the wind howling through the passes like a living thing, the mountains only care about one
The route is
question.
marked. Proceed
Can
to
you
phase line
make the
Alpha.
shot?
Rally point is here.
Corporal
Hold for
Reese
extraction.
Calloway, United States Marine Corps, 27 years old, 118 pounds soaking wet, had been answering that question for 72 hours straight. The Barrett M107 rifle kicked hard against her shoulder. Through the Schmidt and Bender scope, 900 yards downrange, another hostile dropped. 36 rounds left in her ammunition supply. 43 heat signatures still moving on her thermal display. The math wasn't good. She was going to run out of bullets before she ran out of enemies. "Phantom, this is actual." The radio crackled in her ear, cutting through the chaos of gunfire echoing across the Afghan valley. "Extraction inbound. ETA 8 minutes. Can you hold?" 8 minutes might as well be 8 hours. Reese's finger found the trigger again, squeezed. The rifle thundered. 850 yards away, a Taliban fighter who'd been sprinting toward the compound where her teammates were trapped suddenly wasn't sprinting anymore. 35 rounds left. She could see them all through her scope. 12 Marines pinned down in that building, bleeding, dying, counting on her to keep the wolves at bay. Gunnery Sergeant Hollis Maddox was down there. So was Doc Brennan. So was Lieutenant Reeves. 3 good men who'd followed her into this hell because they trusted her judgment, trusted her skills, trusted that the intelligence was solid. The intelligence had been wrong, or worse, it had been a lie. "Phantom, confirm. Can you hold for 8 minutes?" Reese chambered another round. The bolt action was smooth, mechanical, reliable. Like everything else in her life that actually mattered. Rifles didn't lie. Bullets didn't betray. Physics was honest. People, though, people lied all the time. Through her thermal scope, she could count them. 43 heat signatures converging on her position from 3 directions. Taliban militants, well paid to be here tonight. Well paid to kill American Marines. Well paid to make sure none of them made it home. But something was wrong. Something beyond the obvious wrongness of being outnumbered 4-1 in the middle of nowhere. One of those heat signatures moved differently. Tactical. Professional. And when he turned, adjusting his position, Reese saw it through her scope. A tattoo on his forearm, visible for just a second as he reached for his rifle. USMC. Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. A Marine, an American Marine, leading this ambush. Ice flooded Reese's veins. This wasn't just an ambush. This was betrayal. "Phantom, I need confirmation. 8 minutes." She thought about Maddox down there, thought about the way he'd looked at her during the briefing 3 days ago. His weathered face serious, eyes holding that quiet confidence he always had. The same look her grandfather must have worn in Desert Storm when he'd made those legendary shots and saved an entire platoon. Maddox had told her once, 10% is the shot, Phantom. 90% is the decision you make before you ever touch the trigger. This was a decision. "Roger, actual." Her voice was steady, calm, betraying none of the hammering in her chest. "I'll hold." She pulled the trigger. Another target down at 920 yards. The man had been setting up a machine gun position. 34 rounds left, 8 minutes, 42 targets still moving. The math still wasn't good. But math had never stopped Reese Calloway before. 9 months earlier, the morning sun hadn't yet burned off the dew when Reese arrived at Fort Bragg for the National Precision Rifle Championship. 0530 hours. The qualification wasn't scheduled until 0800. But she'd learned long ago that preparation was the difference between success and failure, between life and death, between proving them right and proving them wrong. She'd been proving them wrong her entire life. At 5'3" and 118 pounds, Reese Calloway didn't look like a Marine. Didn't look like someone who could carry an 85-pound pack through 20 miles of mountains. Didn't look like someone who could put a bullet through a target skull at 1,000 yards while her own heart hammered at 160 beats per minute from sheer exhaustion. She especially didn't look like someone who belonged among the elite of the elite, the ones who operated in shadows and never talked about the things they'd seen, the things they'd done. But looks, Reese had learned, were the most honest form of deception. Her grandfather had taught her that. Master Gunnery Sergeant Garrison Ghost Calloway, Marine Force Recon, 91 confirmed kills in Desert Storm. He'd been 5'6", small for a Marine, small for a man who'd earned legendary status among snipers worldwide. Size doesn't mean nothing, he'd told her when she was 12, teaching her to shoot on his Montana ranch. It's about stillness, about patience, about making the decision before the world even knows there's a decision to be made. She'd never met her father. Captain Rowan Calloway, Marine Force Recon, killed in Mogadishu when Reese was 13 months old. Battle of Mogadishu, October 3, 1993. He died pulling wounded men to safety while under heavy fire. That's what the citation said. Navy Cross, Purple Heart, a flag folded into a triangle that lived in a box in her closet. She knew him only through photographs and stories, through the Force Recon tab her grandfather had framed on the wall, through the weight of expectation that came with being a Calloway. Her grandfather had raised her after that, taught her everything: shooting, tracking, survival, honor, discipline, sacrifice. How to breathe, how to wait, how to squeeze a trigger so smoothly that the rifle never knew it was coming. He died 3 years ago. Heart failure at 74, peaceful in his sleep. She'd cried for a week. Then she'd enlisted. Now here she was, 5 years later, standing on a range at Fort Bragg with 200 sniper candidates about to watch her either succeed spectacularly or fail publicly. The qualification was simple in theory: multiple stages over 4 days, long-range precision, unknown distance estimation, stress shooting under physical exhaustion, perfect execution required to win assignment to Marine Special Operations Command. In practice, it was designed to separate the merely excellent from the truly elite. Reese had been shooting since she was 8 years old. She'd put 10,000 rounds through rifles before she was 16. She could judge wind speed by feel, calculate bullet drop in her head, compensate for temperature and humidity without thinking about it. She'd aced every shooting test the Marine Corps had thrown at her. But this wasn't just about shooting. This was about Colonel Victor Stroud, 52 years old, 28 years in the Marines. Old school didn't begin to describe him. He'd been a Force Recon operator when women weren't even allowed in combat roles. He'd fought in Panama in '89, in Somalia in '93, in Iraq through 2 wars and a dozen deployments in between. He had 17 confirmed kills as a scout sniper, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, a Navy Cross. And he'd made it crystal clear in 100 small ways that he didn't believe women belonged in Marine Special Operations. Not because they weren't capable, he'd say when pressed, just because combat was ugly, brutal, physical in ways that required a certain kind of strength that, in his experience, women generally didn't possess. It was a careful argument, politically correct enough to avoid reprimand, vague enough to be defensible, and completely full of shit. Reese had known men like Stroud her whole life. Men who smiled and said the right words, but whose eyes told the real story. Men who'd watch her shoot, nod appreciatively, then make a comment about how she must have been trained by someone good, or how she had surprising talent. Never just talent, always surprising. As if her being competent was some kind of anomaly to be puzzled over, rather than a skill earned through 10,000 hours of practice and genetic predisposition towards steady hands and excellent vision. Her grandfather had warned her, "You're going to have to be twice as good to be considered half as qualified," he'd said. "That's just the way it is. You can be angry about it, or you can use it. Make them underestimate you. Then show them what underestimation costs. So she had. Through Scout Sniper School, through every test, every qualification, every moment where instructors watched her a little more carefully, doubted her a little more readily, celebrated her successes a little less enthusiastically than they did for the men. She'd become one of 4 women to ever earn the Marine Scout Sniper designation. And still, Stroud looked at her like she was a diversity hire. Today would change that, one way or another. By 0800 hours, the range was crowded. 200 candidates, maybe more. Word had spread that Calloway was qualifying today. Some came to support her. Most came to see if she'd fail. Colonel Stroud stood at the firing line, clipboard in hand, expression neutral. He ran these qualifications personally, made a point of it. Every shooter got the same treatment, his full attention, his exacting standards, his complete impartiality. That's what he'd say anyway. Reese had watched him run qualifications before. She'd noticed things, the way he'd nod encouragingly at male shooters who were struggling, the way he'd make small allowances, an extra 30 seconds here, a generous call on a borderline hit there, little things that added up. She didn't expect those little things today. Corporal Calloway, Stroud's voice carried across the range. Stage 1, you're up. Stage 1 was straightforward. 10 targets at 1,000 yards, 10 minutes. Known distance, no wind flags provided, prone position with bipod. Standard M40A6 sniper rifle, 7.62 millimeter NATO rounds. This was the baseline, pass or go home. Reese walked to the line. 200 pairs of eyes followed her, some curious, some skeptical, some hostile. She ignored them all. Focus on the rifle. Focus on the targets. Focus on the decision. The weapons rack held a dozen M40A6 rifles, standard issue Marine Corps sniper system. She'd qualified on this exact model 100 times, knew every quirk, every adjustment, every millimeter of its capabilities. She reached for the nearest one, but Stroud was already holding a different rifle out to her. Use this one, Corporal. Something in the way he held it made Reese's instincts scream. She took it, hefted it. The weight was right. 14 pounds fully loaded. She brought it to her shoulder, sighted down the barrel toward the targets 1,000 yards downrange. Worked the bolt action, stiff, not impossible, but noticeably harder than it should be. She lowered the rifle, met Stroud's eyes. His face was neutral, professional, but his eyes held a challenge. Reese ejected the magazine, locked the bolt back, examined the chamber. The firing pin looked worn, not broken but close. 1 or 2 more shots and it might fail completely. She checked the scope, ran her thumb along the mounting rings. Loose. The 0 was off. Maybe 3 minutes of angle to the left, enough to make every shot miss by nearly a foot at 1,000 yards. Someone had sabotaged this rifle. Subtly, professionally, in a way that wouldn't be obvious until you tried to shoot it. And Stroud had specifically handed it to her. Sir, Reese's voice was calm. This weapon is compromised. Stroud raised an eyebrow. Compromised how? Firing pin is failing. Scope mounting is loose. Is that right? Not a question, a statement. Stroud stepped closer, lowered his voice so only she could hear. Well, Corporal, here's the thing about combat. You don't always get pristine equipment. Sometimes your rifle gets dropped. Sometimes it gets sand in the mechanism. Sometimes you have to make do with what you've got. He stepped back, raised his voice for the crowd. Marines adapt. Marines overcome. Marines don't make excuses. Then louder for everyone watching. Do it yourself, Corporal. That's what Marines do. Fix it or fail. Your choice. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Do it yourself. Said with just enough emphasis that everyone watching would remember it, would associate those words with this moment, with her. If she asked for a different rifle, she'd be seen as someone who made excuses, someone who couldn't adapt. If she tried to shoot with this rifle, as is, she'd fail. 10 targets, 10 minutes. Perfect score required. With a failing firing pin and a misaligned scope, she'd be lucky to hit 5. Stroud was giving her an impossible choice. Fail by asking for help, or fail by trying without it. 200 people watching, waiting to see what Garrison Calloway's granddaughter would do. Reese looked at the rifle in her hands, looked at the targets downrange, looked at Stroud's barely concealed smile. Then she knelt down, set the rifle on the ground, and pulled out her field kit. "What are you doing?" Stroud asked. Reese didn't answer. She was already disassembling the rifle. Bolt out, firing pin exposed. She had a spare pin in her kit. Every sniper carried one. 60 seconds of work with tools she knew as well as her own hands. The firing pin was easy. The scope was the problem. She could try to realign it, but that would take time she didn't have. The test was 10 minutes. She'd already burned 90 seconds on the firing pin. So she did the only logical thing. She removed the scope entirely. 200 people watching in complete silence now. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Reese reassembled the rifle, loaded the magazine, stood up, brought the rifle to her shoulder. Iron sights, no scope, 1,000 yards, 10 targets, 8 minutes remaining. "You've got to be kidding me." Someone in the crowd said it. Reese didn't know who, didn't care. She found the first target through the iron sights. A black circle on white paper, 1,000 yards away. At this distance, it was barely visible. A dark smudge against the backstop. Wind was 8 miles per hour, left to right. Temperature was 72 degrees. Humidity was high. It had rained last night. Ground still wet. All of that affected the bullet's flight path. With a scope, she could adjust precisely. With iron sights, she had to do the math in her head and trust her instincts. Reese breathed out slowly, let her heart rate settle, found the space between heartbeats where the body goes perfectly still. Squeezed. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. A second later, downrange, the target showed a hit. Center mass. She worked the bolt, found target 2, adjusted for wind. Squeezed. Hit. Target 3, 4, 5. Each shot took about 5 seconds. Sight. Breathe. Adjust. Squeeze. The crowd wasn't silent anymore. People were whispering, pointing. She heard her name, heard her grandfather's name. Ignore it. Focus. 6, 7, 8, 9. 7 minutes gone. 1 shot left. 1 target. 20 seconds remaining. Target 10 was at the far right of the range. Maximum wind exposure. But when Reese looked for it, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Stroud had walked downrange, was standing next to the target, arms crossed, watching her. Target 10 was directly behind him. If she missed, if the wind shifted, if she made any mistake at all, the bullet could hit Stroud. He was standing 15 feet to the left of the target, close enough that any error could be dangerous. Stroud wasn't just testing her shooting, he was testing her nerve. Reese could take the 9 out of 10, explain that shooting past the range officer was unsafe. That would be the reasonable thing to do. But reasonable wasn't what today was about. She adjusted her stance, breathed out, found that space of perfect stillness. The bullet would pass 6 feet to Stroud's right. She was certain of it, had to be certain, and squeezed. The bullet covered 1,000 yards in under 2 seconds, punched through the center of target 10. Stroud didn't flinch, didn't move, just stared at her across the distance, face unreadable. Reese lowered the rifle. Her hands were steady, her breathing was calm. Silence, complete and total. 200 people holding their breath. Then Stroud walked back to the firing line, checked the targets through his binoculars, marked his clipboard. 9 out of 10, he announced, voice carrying across the range. Target 6 was a miss, 2 inches left of center. Minimum passing score is 10 out of 10. Reese looked at him. Target 6 had been a clean hit. She'd seen it. "Sir, I'd like to verify target 6. Are you questioning my assessment, Corporal?" "I'm requesting verification, sir. Standard protocol." Stroud's jaw tightened. But protocol was protocol. He couldn't refuse without looking petty. "Fine, but you're burning your own time." They walked down range together. The crowd followed. 200 people trooping across the range to look at one target. Target 6 had a bullet hole 3/4 of an inch from dead center, well within the passing margin. "That's a pass, sir," Reese said quietly. Stroud stared at the target for a long moment. His face was carved from stone. "9 out of 10, he said again, louder now. "You shot 9 targets within time. Target 10 was not engaged within the time limit." Reese felt ice flood her stomach. "Sir, I shot all 10 targets." "You shot 9 targets and a win flag." Stroud pointed downrange, past the targets. "Target 10 was never engaged. Time ran out." Reese followed his pointing finger. In the distance, 200 yards past the targets, a wind measurement flag hung on a pole. The flag was split clean in half. The pole itself showed a bullet impact. She'd been so focused on the numbered targets, she hadn't looked beyond them. Stroud was right. She'd hit 9 of 10 numbered targets. The 10th target was standing there, pristine, unmarked, no bullet hole. Someone had switched the targets. Between her 9th shot and her 10th, in those few seconds when she was focusing on Stroud's position, someone had swapped out target 10 for a clean one. Her bullet had gone long, hit the win flag at 1,247 yards instead. "Sir," Reese's voice was hard now, barely controlled. "Target 10 was hit. Someone switched the target." "That's a serious accusation, Corporal. Are you saying someone here sabotaged your qualification?" The way he said it, the slight emphasis on someone, the raised eyebrow, he was daring her to accuse him directly. In front of 200 witnesses. If she did, she'd look paranoid, unstable, making excuses. If she didn't, she'd failed. Reese looked at the pristine target, looked at Stroud's satisfied face, looked at the distant wind flag, split in half at 1,247 yards. Then she made a decision. "Sir, request permission to take one more shot." Stroud's eyes narrowed. "Your time is up." "Not at the numbered target, sir. At the wind flag." "What?" "The wind flag. 1,247 yards. You said I shot it instead of target 10. But that implies I was aiming at it." She paused. "I wasn't. That was a miss." The crowd murmured. Someone laughed nervously. "So you're admitting you missed?" Stroud said. "No, sir. I'm saying if I can hit that flagpole on purpose from 1,000 yards with iron sights, then maybe you'll reconsider whether my 10th shot was actually a miss or if someone switched the target." Stroud studied her. She could see him calculating. The flag was 1,247 yards away. With iron sights, hitting a 6-inch pole at that distance was nearly impossible. Maybe one shot in 100, even for an expert. If she missed, she looked like a fool. If by some miracle she hit it, well, she'd still only hit 9 numbered targets. He could still fail her on a technicality. "Fine," he said. "One shot. You miss, you're done here. Forever." Reese walked back to the firing line. The crowd followed, buzzing with whispers. She picked up the rifle, checked the chamber, 1 round left in the magazine. 1,247 yards. Iron sights. Wind shifting now, probably 10 miles per hour. Variable direction. The flagpole was 6 inches wide. At this distance, through iron sights, it was invisible. Just a thin, vertical line against the sky. Reese brought the rifle to her shoulder, found where she thought the flag should be, thought about her grandfather. Desert Storm, Kuwait, 1991. 12 shots, 12 kills, 6 hours pinned down. They'd called him Ghost because death followed his bullets with absolute certainty. Thought about her father, Mogadishu, 1993. Died pulling wounded men to safety, never hesitated, Never quit. Thought about Gunnery Sergeant Maddox, the team leader she trained with for the past month. 10% is the shot, he'd said. 90% is the decision. This was the decision. She breathed out, found the stillness, made the calculation not with math, but with instinct. With 10,000 hours of practice compressed into a single moment of clarity, and pulled the trigger. The rifle thundered. The bullet left the barrel at 2,800 feet per second, began dropping immediately, began drifting in the wind. 2.5 seconds of flight time. 2.5 seconds where physics and ballistics and a dozen variables all had to align perfectly. Downrange, 1,247 yards away, the flagpole exploded. Not just hit, shattered. The steel pole itself split clean in half. The flag tumbled away in pieces. The crowd erupted, shouting, cheering, applause that rolled across the range like thunder. Reese lowered the rifle, looked at Stroud. His face had gone pale. Not angry, shocked. Like he'd just seen something impossible become real. "Lucky shot," he said quietly, but there was no conviction in it. Reese stepped closer, kept her voice low enough that only Stroud could hear. "My grandfather made a shot like that in Kuwait, 1991. Saved Colonel Branch Kincaid's life. Kincaid was pinned down, 3 hostiles about to overrun his position. Grandfather was 1,200 yards out, made 3 shots in 7 seconds. 3 kills. Kincaid lived." She paused, watched Stroud's face. "Kincaid told me that story personally," she continued. "Said it was the most incredible shooting he'd ever witnessed. Said he owed Garrison Calloway his life." Stroud's jaw clenched. "Kincaid also told me," Reese said, "that the hardest thing about being a leader isn't knowing who's good. It's admitting when you're wrong." She handed him the rifle, started to walk away. "Corporal Calloway." She stopped, turned back. Stroud was looking at his clipboard, at the scores, at the crowd watching him, at the shattered flagpole in the distance. When he looked up, something in his face had changed. Not warmth, not acceptance, but something closer to grudging respect. "Welcome to Marine Special Operations Command," he said, voice carrying across the range. "Don't make me regret this." The crowd cheered again, louder this time. Reese heard her name, heard people shouting, "Congratulations." She just nodded at Stroud and walked away. Behind her, someone was laughing. Someone else was replaying what they just seen. The impossible shot, the shattered pole. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Because Reese Calloway had just learned something important about Colonel Victor Stroud. He wasn't just old guard prejudice wrapped in protocol. Something darker lurked behind those eyes. Something that set off every alarm bell her grandfather had taught her to listen to. She'd have to remember that, file it away, because she had a feeling this wasn't over. That Stroud's grudging acceptance today was just the opening move in a longer game. But for now, for this moment, she'd won. She'd proven she belonged. And that was enough. 4 days later, Syria. The briefing room at the forward operating base was cramped and hot. 6 people packed into a space designed for 4. Sweat stained everyone's uniforms. The air conditioning had been broken for 3 days. Reese sat in the back, M4A1 carbine leaning against her leg, notebook open on her lap. Around her, the Marine Special Operations team listened as the intelligence officer ran through mission details. "Target is a suspected weapons cache," the IO said, pointing at a map projected on the wall. "Border region, 15 clicks from Turkish line. Compound here." He tapped the screen. 3 buildings arranged in a U-shape around a central courtyard. 3 buildings, minimal security. Recon suggests maybe 6 to 8 hostiles, local militia, not trained military. "What kind of weapons?" That was Gunnery Sergeant Hollis Maddox, Hawk, team leader. 38 years old, 18 years in the Marines. His voice was always calm, always measured. The kind of voice that made you feel like everything was under control, even when the world was exploding around you. Small arms mostly, AKS, RPGs, maybe some IEDs. Standard stuff for the region. Intel source? Maddox asked. Signal intercept. NSA flagged communications 3 days ago. Chatter about a shipment arriving. High value. Maddox nodded. Didn't look convinced. Reese had learned to read his expressions over the past month. The slight tightness around his eyes meant he was skeptical, but didn't have enough information to push back yet. Rules of engagement? Asked Lieutenant Jason Reeves, 29, communications specialist. Good kid. Still had that fresh confidence that came from not having been shot at enough times yet. Observe and report. If you can secure the weapons, do it. If not, document and exfil. This is a recon mission, not an assault. Who else knows about this? Senior Sergeant Marcus Brennan spoke up. Doc, 41, medic and intelligence specialist. He'd been in the Marines longer than anyone except Maddox. Had a PhD in Middle Eastern studies from Georgetown. Spoke Arabic, Farsi, and Kurdish fluently. The man was brilliant and had saved more lives than Reese could count. Just us in higher command. Need to know only. Doc and Maddox exchanged a look. Reese saw it, so did everyone else. Something you want to share, Gunny? The IO asked. Maddox leaned back in his chair. How solid is this intel? Solid enough to send you in. That's not an answer. The IO's face tightened. The intel is good, Gunnery Sergeant. NSA doesn't flag things unless they're confident. NSA isn't going to be on the ground with us. That's above my pay grade. You have your orders. The briefing wrapped up 10 minutes later. Mission launch was 0200 hours. 4 hours to prep. As they filed out, Maddox pulled Reese aside. What do you think? He asked. Reese considered. Maddox didn't ask questions like that unless he already had an opinion and wanted to see if you agreed. Feels thin, she said. Signal intercept is circumstantial. No visual confirmation. No local human intel to back it up. Yeah, Maddox nodded. That's what I thought too. You think it's bad? I think something feels off. Can't put my finger on it. He glanced around, made sure they were alone. Keep your eyes open out there, Phantom. Trust your gut. Phantom, her call sign. Earned during training when she'd managed to slip past every sensor and guard during a nighttime infiltration exercise. One instructor had joked she was like a phantom. There one moment, gone the next, leaving only dead targets behind. The name stuck. Will do, Gunny. Maddox squeezed her shoulder. The gesture was fatherly, comforting. Your grandfather would be proud of you, kid. You know that. Good ones remember. There's a difference. 0200 hours came fast. The team loaded into a Black Hawk helicopter, lifted off into darkness, 40-minute flight to the drop zone, then a 3-click hike to the target compound. The desert at night was cold and empty. Stars overhead so thick they looked like spilled salt. The terrain below reduced to shadows and thermal signatures. Reese moved with the team, M4A1 ready, eyes scanning constantly. This was her first actual combat mission with the team. She'd trained with them for a month, run drills, proven herself in exercises. But exercises weren't real. Exercises had safety protocols and do-overs and medical support 30 seconds away. This was different. This was the reason she'd endured Scout Sniper School. The reason she'd pushed through every moment of doubt, every voice telling her she didn't belong. This was real. They reached the compound at 0345 hours. 3 buildings arranged in a U-shape around a central courtyard. No lights, no movement. Thermal imaging showed 8 heat signatures inside the main building. Sleeping, probably. Maddox signaled the team into position. Reese moved to the east side, found a vantage point on a small rise 50 yards from the compound. From here, she could see all 3 buildings, cover the entire courtyard. Her job was overwatch, watch and report. If things Doc, Maddox said, talk to me. Gunny, you need to see this. These aren't militia weapons. Static cut him off. Then gunfire erupted. Not from inside the compound, from outside. from 3 directions simultaneously. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like fireworks. Bullets tore through the walls of the main building where Doc and Reeves had gone. Ambush. Contact! Maddox's voice, sharp now. We're taking fire. Multiple hostiles. All sides. Reese was already moving, with DoD serial numbers. That meant someone in the U.S. government had put them here, which meant someone in the U.S. government knew the team would find them, which meant this whole mission was designed to silence them. Fall back to Rally Point Alpha, Maddox ordered. Fighting withdrawal, Reese fired. Again and again, covering fire, buying seconds for her team to extract. Through her scope, she saw Maddox moving, saw him take a round to the leg, saw him go down. Gunny's hit, Reeves yelled. I got him. Doc was already moving, combat medic training taking over. He reached Maddox, started dragging him toward cover, but the enemy had them bracketed, converging from 3 sides. The team was being herded, pushed into a kill zone. Reese switched to rapid fire, target after target, emptied a magazine, reloaded, kept firing. 8 enemies down, 10, 12. Not enough. There were 40 more. Doc, how bad is he? Reeves asked. Femoral artery. I can patch it, but I need time. We don't have time. Then he dies. Reese made a decision, made it in the space between heartbeats, the way her grandfather had taught her, the way Maddox had reinforced. 10% is the shot, 90% is the decision. She stood up from her position, started moving toward the compound at a dead run, firing as she went. Phantom, what are you doing? Maddox's voice, weak but furious. Get back to cover. She didn't answer, didn't have breath to spare, just ran and shot and ran some more. Reached the compound, took up position between the enemy and her wounded team leader. Unloaded everything she had, M4A1 on full auto, Sig Sauer pistol when the rifle went dry, flashbangs, grenades, every tool in her kit. She bought Doc 3 minutes. 3 minutes of chaos and violence and controlled aggression. 3 minutes was enough. We're mobile, Doc yelled. Moving to extraction. They ran. Reese covered their withdrawal, picked off stragglers, made every shot count. But there was still one enemy she couldn't see. One sniper. Hidden somewhere in the darkness. She could feel him, could sense that crosshair painting her back. She spun, scanned the roof lines. Thermal showed a signature on top of the far building. 823 yards, elevated position. Weapon aimed not at her, at Maddox. The sniper was tracking Maddox's movement, going for the kill. Reese brought her rifle up, found the target through her scope. 823 yards, wind from the east, maybe 6 miles per hour. Elevation significant. Target partially obscured by a wall. It was a difficult shot, maybe a 3-second window before the sniper fired. But Maddox was still moving, disoriented from blood loss. If she took the shot now, with Maddox in her sight picture, if he stumbled at the wrong moment, if her bullet dropped a fraction of an inch low, no time. No time to calculate, no time to second guess, just the decision. She squeezed. But in that same instant, the enemy sniper fired too. Reese's bullet flew true. She saw it through the scope, saw it hit the enemy sniper's center mass, saw him topple backward, dead before he hit the ground. But his bullet had already left the barrel, already crossed 800 yards of space, already found its target. Maddox jerked, fell. No, Reese was running before she knew she'd moved, covered the distance in seconds, slid to her knees beside him. The bullet had hit him in the chest, right between his armor plates, the gap that every Marine knew about, that every Marine accepted as a calculated risk because perfect protection meant too much weight to move. Doc was already there, already working, hands moving with practiced efficiency, but his face said everything. Maddox, Reese grabbed his hand. Gunny, stay with me. His eyes found hers, focused, cleared for just a moment. Phantom. His voice was wet, bubbling, blood in his lungs. Don't. Save your strength. You did good. Doc's going to patch you up. Just hold on. Best I ever trained. His hand tightened on hers. Don't stop. I won't, I promise. Just hold on. But Maddox's eyes were already losing focus. His hand went slack. No, 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 no. Doc kept working, kept trying. Come on, Gunny. Stay with us. Stay. Maddox's chest stopped moving. Reese felt something break inside her. Some fundamental piece of her worldview that had always assumed the good guys won. That skill and training and courage were enough. They weren't. Maddox was dead. And it was her fault. If she'd shot faster, if she'd seen the enemy sniper sooner, if she'd made a different decision. We have to move. Reeves's voice cut through her spiral. Extraction bird is inbound. 2 minutes. Doc pulled Maddox's dog tags, pressed them into Reese's hand. The tags were warm, still held his body heat. For the memorial wall, Doc said quietly, he'd want you to have them. They carried Maddox to the extraction point, got him into the helicopter, lifted off into darkness. Reese sat holding his dog tags, holding his hand, watching his face. He looked peaceful. That was something. That was maybe enough. But it wasn't. 3 days later, the after-action report concluded that Gunnery Sergeant Hollis Maddox had been killed in action. Combat casualty, line of duty death, Purple Heart, full military honors, mission deemed successful despite casualties. The report said nothing about American weapons with DoD serial numbers, said nothing about the ambush being too coordinated, too professional, said nothing about how the enemy knew exactly where the team would be. When Reese asked about it, she was told the matter was above her clearance level, under investigation by appropriate authorities. She knew what that meant. It meant the investigation would go nowhere. It meant the weapons would disappear. It meant whoever set up the ambush would never be held accountable. Maddox died protecting a secret someone wanted buried, and Reese couldn't do a damn thing about it. She put in for discharge 3 days later. It was approved within 24 hours. Honorable discharge. Full benefits. Thank you for your service. They wanted her gone, wanted her silent, wanted the whole thing forgotten. So she left, packed her gear, attended Maddox's funeral at Arlington, stood in the rain while they folded the flag and played taps and said all the right words about duty and honor and sacrifice. Then she drove west, drove until she hit Montana, drove until she found her grandfather's cabin, empty now for 3 years, but still standing. She moved in, lived alone, spent her days running and shooting and trying not to think about Maddox's last words. Don't stop. But she had stopped. She'd quit. She'd walked away. Because what was the point? What was the point of being a Marine, of being the best, if your own government sent you into traps and covered up the truth and let good men die? 6 months passed. 6 months of isolation and whiskey and nightmares. 6 months of wondering if Maddox would be disappointed in her, if her grandfather would be ashamed. Then Admiral Wesley Harrington called, and everything changed. The phone rang at 0600 hours on a Tuesday morning in October, 6 months after Reese had buried Hollis Maddox at Arlington. She'd been awake for 2 hours already, staring at the ceiling of her grandfather's cabin, replaying the Syria mission for the 600th time, watching Maddox fall, watching that bullet hit him between the armor plates, watching the light go out of his eyes. If she'd been faster, if she'd seen the sniper sooner, if she'd made a different decision. The nightmare loop never stopped. She almost didn't answer the phone. Nobody called anymore. Nobody knew where she was. That was the point of hiding in Montana, 40 miles from the nearest town, in a cabin with no address and spotty cell service. But the number had a Virginia area code, and something in her gut said this wasn't a telemarketer. Callaway, Corporal Calloway, this is Admiral Wesley Harrington. Reese sat up. Harrington. She knew that name. Her grandfather had mentioned him a dozen times. Best friend from Desert Storm. Had saved his life during a sandstorm ambush. Garrison had returned the favor 3 days later with a 1,200-yard shot that took out a sniper about to kill Harrington's entire squad. They'd stayed friends for 30 years after that. Harrington had spoken at her grandfather's funeral, had pulled Reese aside afterward, told her that Garrison was the finest Marine he'd ever known, that if she ever needed anything, anything at all, to call him. She'd never called. Admiral, what can I do for you? I need you to listen carefully, Reese, and I need you to not hang up until I'm done talking. I'm listening. Hollis Maddox didn't die in combat. He was murdered. The words hit like a physical blow. Reese's hand tightened on the phone. What are you talking about? The after-action report was sanitized. Classified sections removed, but I have access to the ballistics analysis. The bullet that killed Maddox was a .338 Lapua Magnum, high-end sniper round, not standard issue for Syrian militia or local terrorists. Reese's mind raced. She remembered that night, remembered the precision of the enemy sniper, the professional setup of the ambush. Who was the shooter? We don't know, but here's what we do know. In the past 24 months, 6 members of your Marine Special Operations team have died, all in combat, all ruled as casualties of war, all killed by .338 Lapua Magnum rounds. 6 deaths, same weapon, same team. That's not coincidence, Reese said. No, it's not. Someone is systematically eliminating your unit, and we think we know why. Harrington paused. Reese heard papers shuffling on his end. What did Doc say about those weapons, the ones in the compound? He said they were American, DoD serial numbers. He was right. Those weapons were part of a CIA program called Operation Timber Sycamore. Started in 2012, officially ended in 2017. The program armed Syrian rebels to fight Assad, except some of those rebels became ISIS. Some became other terrorist groups. And when people started asking questions about American weapons showing up in terrorist hands, certain individuals in the government decided the easiest solution was to make the evidence disappear. And anyone who saw the evidence, Reese said slowly, gets eliminated. Yes. By who? By someone we call the Wolf. Real name unknown. Former Marine scout sniper, we think. Went private around 2015. Works exclusively for high-level clients. Government officials, intelligence agencies, anyone who can afford him. He's eliminated over 60 targets in the past decade. Journalists, whistleblowers, political opponents, and now your team. Reese stood up, started pacing. Her cabin suddenly felt too small. Why are you telling me this? Because you're next on his list, and because I'm putting together a team to find him, to stop him, to expose whoever in the government is protecting him. I'm discharged. I'm not a Marine anymore. You're Garrison Calloway's granddaughter. You're the best sniper I've seen in 30 years, and you're the only survivor of your team who's still alive and capable of fighting back. There are other survivors. Reeves, Doc. Lieutenant Reeves died 3 weeks ago. Vehicle accident in Germany. Brake line failure. Except the brake line was cut. Reese felt her stomach drop. And Doc? Doc is alive. He's part of the team I'm assembling. So is Colonel Branch Kincaid. Delta Force. You may have heard of him. Kincaid. The name rang a bell. Her grandfather had mentioned him. The officer he'd saved in Kuwait with that legendary 3-shot sequence. What's the mission? Find the Wolf. Find out who's paying him. Expose the conspiracy. Bring them all down. And if I say no, then you keep hiding in Montana, and eventually the Wolf finds you, and you die alone, just like Maddox died, just like Reeves died, just like everyone else who knew too much. Reese looked at Maddox's dog tags hanging on her wall. next to her grandfather's photo, next to her father's Purple Heart. "Don't stop," Maddox had said, his last words. She'd stopped. She'd quit. She'd run away. But maybe it wasn't too late to start again. "When do I start?" "There's a jet waiting at Kalispell Airport. 2 hours. Pack light." The line went dead. Reese stood in her cabin for a long moment. Then she started packing. She was done hiding. The Pentagon sub-basement didn't officially exist. No signs, no directory listing, just a nondescript door in a maintenance corridor that required 3 separate security clearances to open. Admiral Harrington led Reese through the checkpoints, past armed guards who didn't make eye contact, down corridors that all looked identical, finally stopped at a conference room door. "Before we go in," Harrington said, "I need you to understand something. This operation doesn't exist. You're not officially reinstated. If things go wrong, the government will deny everything. You'll be on your own." "Understood. And Reese," he put a hand on her shoulder, "your grandfather would be proud. He always believed in doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard." He opened the door. Inside were 3 people. A man in his late 50s, weather-beaten face, gray hair cut military short. When he stood up, Reese saw the bearing of someone who'd spent decades in combat and survived. "Corporal Calloway," he extended his hand. "Colonel Branch Kincaid, your grandfather saved my life in Kuwait. I've been waiting to meet you for a long time." His grip was firm, confident. The grip of someone who'd made impossible decisions and lived with the consequences. "Colonel, I've heard the stories." "All true, unfortunately," Kincaid smiled, "and probably worse than what you heard." The second person was a woman, mid-30s, sharp eyes behind glasses, fingers flying across a laptop keyboard. "Dr. Parker Sutton," she said without looking up. "CIA, tech and intelligence specialist. Also, my brother was killed by the wolf 3 years ago, so I have a personal stake in seeing this bastard dead." Straight to the point, Reese appreciated that. The third person pulled her into a one-armed hug. Fold her into a one-armed hug. "Thought I'd lost you too. Thought I'd lost you. Hard to kill, like a cockroach." They held each other for a moment. 2 survivors of an ambush that should have killed them both. "What's the plan?" Reese asked, stepping back. Kincaid gestured to the table. Satellite imagery, maps, documents spread across the surface. 3 days from now, there's a weapons deal going down in Afghanistan, Kandahar province. Crimson Syndicate meeting with local buyers. The wolf is expected to be there, providing security. Expected or confirmed? Expected based on communications intercepts and pattern analysis. The wolf always shows up when his clients are moving high-value merchandise. "What's the merchandise?" Sutton turned her laptop around, showed shipping manifests, inventory lists. "Military hardware, including Stinger missiles, AT-4 rockets and small arms. That matched the serial numbers from the compound in Syria. Same batch, same program." "So this is still going on," Reese said, "even after our team found evidence." "Not just going on, accelerating. Whoever's running this has gotten bolder, more careless. They think they're untouchable." Kincaid leaned forward. "Our job is to prove them wrong. We infiltrate the deal, identify the wolf, take him alive if possible, find out who he's working for. And if we can't take him alive?" Kincaid's expression hardened. "Then we put a bullet in his head and search his body for answers." Reese looked at the satellite imagery. The compound was in the middle of nowhere, mountains on 3 sides. One road, in and out. Perfect place for an ambush. Perfect place for a trap. "This feels familiar," she said quietly. "It should." Kincaid met her eyes. "It's the same tactical setup as Syria, same geographic profile, same everything. So they're using the same playbook, which means we know what to expect, and we can plan accordingly." Sutton closed her laptop. "We have 48 hours to prep, equipment, logistics, contingency plans. After that, we're wheels up to Kandahar. Just the four of us? Just the four of us, Kincaid confirmed. Small team, deniable. If this goes sideways, there's no backup. No extraction unless we arrange it ourselves. Why me? Reese asked. You could get a dozen snipers with more experience. Kincaid shook his head. I could get a dozen snipers with more time in service. But better? No. I've seen your file. That shot at the qualification. 1,247 yards with iron sights. That's not training. That's genetics. That's your grandfather's gift, passed down. He paused. And more importantly, you have skin in the game. Maddox was your mentor, your friend. This isn't just a mission for you. It's personal. That makes you dangerous in all the right ways. Reese thought about Maddox, about his last words. Don't stop. She hadn't stopped. She just paused, caught her breath. Now it was time to finish what Maddox had started. I'm in. What do you need me to do? The next 48 hours were a blur of preparation. Weapons testing, tactical planning, intelligence briefings. Reese threw herself into it with the same intensity she'd brought to Scout Sniper School. The equipment was impressive. Kincaid had access to gear that wasn't officially supposed to exist. Barrett M107 with enhanced optics, M4A1 with custom suppressor, night vision that could pick out heat signatures from 2,000 yards. Perks of having 3 decades of connections, Kincaid said when she asked about it. You make friends in the right places. Doors open. They spent hours on the range. Kincaid wanted to see what Reese could do, wanted to know her limits. She showed him. 1,500 yards, moving target, 15-mile-per-hour crosswind. First shot, kill. Kincaid whistled low. Damn, Garrison taught you well. He taught me everything. He tell you about the shot? The one in Kuwait? He mentioned it. 3 shots, 3 kills, 7 seconds. 6 seconds, actually, but who's counting? Kincaid smiled. We were pinned down by Iraqi forces, caught in the open after a patrol went bad. 3 snipers had us bracketed. We couldn't move, couldn't call for air support because the radio was damaged. We were maybe 10 minutes from dying. He paused, remembering. Then Garrison just appeared. I didn't even know he was attached to our unit. He set up 1,200 yards out, and in 6 seconds, 3 Iraqi snipers were dead. Perfect headshots, all 3. I didn't even hear the shots until after they were down. He didn't like talking about it, Reese said. Good snipers never do. They carry those kills differently than other soldiers. More personal, more intimate. You look a man in the eye through a scope, even from 1,000 yards away, and pull the trigger, that stays with you. Reese knew what he meant. She'd made 19 kills in Syria, could still see their faces, still remembered the way each one fell, the finality of it. Does it get easier? She asked. No, and if it does, you need to stop. The day killing becomes easy is the day you stop being a soldier and become something else. They trained until dark. Then Sutton called them in for final intel briefing. The situation had changed. Thermal satellite shows increased activity at the target compound, Sutton said, pulling up real-time imagery. We're counting 20 heat signatures now, up from 12 this morning. Taliban reinforcements? Kincaid asked. Possibly, or Crimson is bringing more security. Either way, we're outnumbered. We've been outnumbered before, Reese said. Kincaid nodded. What's the compound layout? Sutton zoomed in. 3 buildings, central courtyard. Main structure here is where the deal will happen. Security will be concentrated there. These 2 auxiliary buildings are likely housing for guards. Sightlines? Limited. Mountains restrict long-range approach from north and west. Best overwatch position is here. She tapped the screen. Old Soviet observation post on this ridge. 1,147 yards from main building. Elevated. Clear line of sight to courtyard in all 3 structures. That's where Phantom sets up, Kincaid said, using Reese's call sign. Doc and I go in close for identification. Phantom provides overwatch and covering fire if things go loud. When things go loud, Reese corrected. Kincaid grinned. Optimist, I like it. Sutton pulled up more imagery. Here's the problem. Only one road in and out. If they block it, we're trapped. Nearest extraction point is 5 clicks north, through mountains, on foot, carrying a prisoner, under fire. That's a nightmare scenario. So we don't let it become a nightmare, Kincaid said. We go in quiet, grab the wolf, slip out before anyone knows we're there. And if he's not there, Reese asked, then we abort, wait for another opportunity. But Reese could see in Kincaid's face that he didn't believe that. This was their one shot. If they missed it, the wolf would disappear. Whoever was protecting him would tighten security. Maddox would never get justice. We won't miss, Reese said. Kincaid looked at her, nodded slowly. No, we won't. The insertion was smooth. The pilot was 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Night Stalkers, the best. Dropped them 5 clicks from target at 0200 hours, low and fast, then disappeared into the darkness. The silence after the helicopter left was absolute, just wind and darkness, and 3 people who didn't exist on any official roster, hunting a ghost who'd killed dozens. They moved through the mountains like shadows, Kincaid on point, Doc in the middle with his medical gear and communications equipment, Reese bringing up rear security. No talking, just hand signals and thermal imaging. And the kind of teamwork that only came from people who understood that one mistake meant everyone died. 4 hours of movement, slow, careful, every step calculated to avoid making noise, avoid leaving traces, avoid triggering any early warning systems. By 0530 hours, they were in position. Reese on the ridge, Barrett M107 set up with perfect sightline to the compound below. 1,147 yards. She'd measured it 3 times with her laser rangefinder. Elevation advantage 400 feet. Clear view of all 3 buildings. Kincaid and Doc 200 yards closer, hidden in a depression that gave them cover and concealment. Now came the hardest part, waiting. The deal was scheduled for 0800 hours. That meant 2.5 hours of lying completely still, maintaining position, staying alert. Reese had done this 1,000 times in training, had done it in Syria, but it never got easier. The mental discipline required to stay absolutely motionless for hours while your body screamed for movement, while your mind tried to wander, while boredom fought with alertness. She used the time productively, checked her gear, confirmed 0 on her scope, calculated wind speed and direction, memorized every inch of the compound through her optics. 14 guards visible, rotating patrols, professional, disciplined, not militia. These were trained operators. At 0745, vehicles arrived. 3 black SUVs, armored judging by how they sat on their suspension. Crimson Syndicate. Reese counted personnel as they exited. 12 men, all armed, all moving with military precision. Through her scope, she identified faces, ran them against the mental database she'd memorized from Sutton's briefings. Target 1, Viktor Volkov, Crimson Syndicate Operations Chief, former Russian Spetsnaz, went private in 2014, suspected of arms dealing, human trafficking, drug smuggling. Smart, ruthless. Target 2, unknown male, Middle Eastern, 40s, expensive robes, moved with authority. Target 3, Reese's breath caught. Target 3 was Colonel Victor Stroud, the man who'd sabotaged her rifle during qualification, the man who'd grudgingly accepted her into the team, the man who'd been a Marine for 28 years. He was here, at an illegal weapons deal, with terrorists. Kincaid, Reese whispered into her radio. We have a problem. Talk to me. Stroud is here, Colonel Victor Stroud, from my unit. He's talking with Volkov right now. Silence on the radio. Then Kincaid's voice, hard as steel. You're sure? Positive ID. He's in civilian clothes, but it's him. More silence. Reese could imagine Kincaid processing this. A Marine colonel involved with Crimson Syndicate. The implications were staggering. Does he see you? Negative. I'm 1,100 yards out. But Kincaid, if Stroud is involved, then he's the leak. He's the one who set up the ambush in Syria. He's the one who ordered the hits on our team. Reese felt rage building in her chest. Stroud had sent them into that compound. Had known it was a trap. Had known Maddox would die. All for what? Money? Power? To protect an illegal weapons program? New mission, Kincaid said. We take him alive. Find out who else is involved. What about the wolf? We'll deal with him if he shows. But Stroud is priority one now. Reese tracked Stroud through her scope. Watched him examine the weapons crates. Watched him nod approvingly at what he saw. American weapons. American betrayal. Then the situation changed. Reese's scope picked up movement on the North Ridge. Thermal signature. Someone in a hide position. Professional setup. Long rifle. Kincaid, we have company. Sniper position. North Ridge. 1,290 yards from compound. The wolf? Possible. He set up to cover the deal. Overwatch position just like mine. Can you take him? Reese calculated. 1,290 yards to the enemy sniper. Uphill shot. Wind gusting now at 10 miles per hour. He was partially concealed behind rocks. Difficult, but doable. Affirmative, but if I shoot, everyone in that compound will know we're here. Hold fire for now. Let's see how this plays out. Reese kept her scope on the enemy sniper. Watched him settle into position. Watched him aim. Not at the compound, at Kincaid and Doc's position. He'd spotted them. Kincaid, he's made you. He's aiming at your position right now. Copy. Do we break contact? Before Kincaid could answer, the enemy sniper fired. Reese saw the muzzle flash, heard the distant crack of the rifle. Kincaid's position erupted, not from a bullet, from an explosion. Mortar round. The sniper's shot had been a signal. Contact! Kincaid's voice shouting now. We're taking fire! Multiple hostiles! This is a trap! Of course it was a trap. Just like Syria, they'd been expected. Someone made it, but math had never stopped her before. Kincaid, I need you to get to that building at grid reference Echo 7, the one with the intact roof. That's 300 yards through open ground. It's the only defensible position. I'll cover you, but you need to move now. Phantom, now, Colonel. She heard Kincaid relay orders to Doc. Then they were moving. Reese saw them through her scope. Two figures sprinting through hell while bullets tore up the ground around them. She started knew it. How did I honor him? By being the best at what he taught me. By surviving when lesser men die. He taught you to protect. You became a murderer. I became what the situation required. Just like you did in Syria. You killed 19 men that night. 19 fathers, sons, brothers. How is that different from what I do? They were trying to kill my team. And the people I kill are trying to destroy my clients. Same thing, different perspective. Reese found him. Thermal signature on the East Ridge. 900 yards. Perfect hide position. He'd been there the whole time. Watching. Waiting. I'm giving you a chance, the wolf said. Walk away. Leave your team. Disappear. I'll let you live. You're too good to waste. Not happening. Then you die here today, along with Kincaid and that medic. And it'll be for nothing, because Stroud will escape. The conspiracy will continue, and Hollis Maddox will remain just another name on a wall. Reese's finger tightened on the trigger. She had a shot, 900 yards, clear sightline. But if she took it, she'd expose her position. The 40 hostiles would know exactly where she was, would converge on her location. She'd die taking that shot. What's it going to be, Phantom? Live or die? She thought about Maddox, thought about his last words, "Don't stop." She thought about her grandfather, thought about the legacy he'd passed down, the responsibility that came with being a Callaway. She thought about Kincaid and Doc trapped in that building, waiting for her decision. 10% is the shot, 90% is the decision. This was the decision. "Kincaid," she said into her radio, "when I take this shot, you'll have maybe 60 seconds before they locate my position. Use that time. Get to the North Ridge. There's a drainage ditch that'll give you cover most of the way." "Phantom, what are you?" "Tell my grandfather I'm sorry. Tell Maddox I finished it." She didn't wait for a response, just acquired the wolf through her scope. 900 yards. Slight crosswind. Target unaware she'd made her choice. She squeezed. The bullet flew true. Hit the wolf center mass. She saw him jerk backward. Saw the thermal signature change as blood spread across his chest. One shot. One kill. But now every hostile knew where she was. She saw them turning, saw muzzle flashes lighting up as they opened fire on her position. Reese relocated immediately, moved 50 yards west to a secondary position she'd scouted hours ago. Set up the Barrett, started engaging. 23 rounds left. 38 hostiles because more had shown up, drawn by the chaos. She shot with mechanical precision. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just breathe, acquire, squeeze, breathe, acquire, squeeze. 15 hostiles down, 8 rounds left. 23 hostiles converging on her new position. She switched to her M4A1. Closer range, faster fire rate. Kincaid's voice on the radio. "Phantom, we're moving. Keep them off us." She did. Burned through 3 magazines providing covering fire. Bought them the time they needed. "We're clear," Kincaid yelled. "We're at the drainage ditch." Reese's rifle clicked empty. She dropped it, drew her Sig Sauer pistol. 5 hostiles reached her position. She shot 2, hand to hand with a third. K-bar knife from her belt. Throat cut. 4th hostile grabbed her from behind. She threw him over her shoulder, shot him twice. 5th hostile was bigger, stronger. They grappled. He got her on the ground, hands around her throat. Her vision tunneled, darkness creeping in. She found her knife, stabbed upward through his chin, into his brain. He went limp, collapsed on top of her. She pushed him off, gasped for air. Her throat screamed, her vision swam. But she was alive, and the wolf was dead. She looked across the battlefield, saw Stroud still trapped behind the disabled SUV, 200 yards away. Hostiles were 50 yards from her now, running, 20 of them. She couldn't stop them all, but she'd done what she came to do, stop the wolf, trap Stroud, gave Kincaid and Doc time to escape. Maddox could rest now. She aimed at the lead hostile, was about to fire when a sound made her look up. Helicopters, 2 of them, coming in fast and low. "Phantom, this is Harrington," the Admiral's voice over the radio. "Extraction inbound. Mark your position." Reese pulled a smoke grenade, popped it. Green smoke poured out. The helicopters descended. Door gunners opened up with M240 machine guns. The hostiles broke and ran. One helicopter touched down 30 yards from Reese's position. A crew chief jumped out, ran to her, helped her up. "Let's go!" She grabbed her Barrett, stumbled toward the helicopter, was hauled inside. Through the open door, she saw the second helicopter extracting Kincaid and Doc. They'd made it. Against impossible odds, they'd actually made it. The helicopter banked hard, gained altitude. The compound shrank below them. Reese collapsed against the bulkhead. Every part of her body hurt. She was bleeding from a dozen places she couldn't identify, but she was alive. And the wolf was dead. The crew chief was talking to her, checking her wounds, but his voice sounded distant, muffled. She thought about Maddox, wondered if he was proud, if he understood why she'd had to risk everything. "Don't stop," he'd said. She hadn't. The last thing she saw before passing out was the sunrise. Beautiful, golden, promising a new day. Then darkness took her. Reese woke to the smell of antiseptic and the rhythmic beeping of machines she couldn't see. White ceiling, white walls, the kind of sterile white that meant hospital, which meant she was either captured or saved. Her brain ran through the possibilities in the 2 seconds it took her eyes to focus. Then she saw Kincaid. He was sitting in a chair by the window, leg propped up in a cast, face bandaged on one side. But he was reading a newspaper. Casual, relaxed, the posture of someone in friendly territory. "Welcome back, Phantom." Reese tried to sit up. Her body had other ideas. Pain shot through her right shoulder and wrapped around her ribs like barbed wire. She gasped, fell back against the pillow. "Easy." Kincaid folded his newspaper, set it aside. "You've got 3 cracked ribs, dislocated shoulder that we had to reset twice, multiple lacerations, and a concussion. Doctor says you're lucky to be alive." "How long?" 36 hours. We're at Walter Reed, secure wing. As far as anyone knows, you were in a training accident. Training accident. The government's favorite lie for classified operations gone sideways. Reese's mind started cataloging. Afghanistan, the wolf, the shot, the extraction. The wolf? Dead. Kincaid pulled out a tablet, turned it to face her. A morgue photo. Male, early 40s, weathered face, scar running from left eye to jawline, dead eyes staring at nothing. "You put a .50 caliber round through his chest at 900 yards. Center mass. He was dead before he hit the ground. We recovered the body, got fingerprints, ran them through every database we have." Kincaid swiped to another screen. Service record. Captain Wade Grimshaw, United States Marine Corps, Scout Sniper, served 8 years, 21 confirmed kills in Iraq and Afghanistan, went private in 2015, became a ghost, started working for the highest bidder. Reese stared at the photo. This was the man who'd killed Maddox, the man who'd killed Reeves, who'd eliminated 6 members of her team over 2 years. And he was a Marine. "There's more." Kincaid's voice went harder. "Grimshaw trained under your grandfather. Force Recon Advanced Scout Sniper Course. 2003, class photos in his file." He swiped again. A group photo. Young Marines in desert camis. And there, in the back row, a young Wade Grimshaw standing 3 people away from Master Gunnery Sergeant Garrison Ghost Calloway. Reese felt something cold settle in her chest. Her grandfather had trained the man who killed Maddox, had taught him the math, the patience, the stillness between heartbeats, had given him the tools that he'd turned into a murder business. "Garrison would have been devastated," she said quietly. "No," Kincaid shook his head. "He would have been furious. There's a difference between teaching someone to be deadly and teaching them to be honorable. Grimshaw learned the first, ignored the second. That's not on Ghost. That's on Grimshaw." He closed the tablet, set it aside. "You did good, Phantom. You put down a rabid dog, 60+ assassinations over 10 years, journalists, whistleblowers, political opponents, and 6 of your brothers and sisters. He's done. Can't hurt anyone else." "Where's Stroud?" Kincaid's expression changed. Not anger, something colder. Calculation. "That's where it gets complicated. We didn't get him in Afghanistan. He escaped during the extraction. Chaos was too thick, and we couldn't chase him without abandoning you." Reese felt ice flood her stomach. "He got away." "Not exactly." Kincaid leaned forward. "Sutton managed to plant a tracker on his vehicle while you were providing cover fire. We've been following him for the past 36 hours. Following him where? To a private estate in Maryland, Chesapeake Bay waterfront, 300 acres. The property is registered to Brigadier General Duncan Stroud." The name hit like a fist. "Let me guess," Reese said. "Victor's older brother." "Oldest of 2. Duncan's been at the Pentagon for 12 years. High-level strategic planning. Reports directly to the Secretary of Defense. Victor's been in the field for 28 years. Wade Grimshaw was their hired gun. All three working together. Reese's head spun. The conspiracy went higher than she'd imagined. Operation Timber Sycamore wasn't just some rogue CIA program, Kincaid continued. It was Duncan Stroud's baby. He created it, ran it, and when Congress officially shut it down in 2017, he kept it going in the shadows, selling American weapons to terrorist organizations, making hundreds of millions of dollars over a decade. Kincaid pulled up more files on his tablet: bank records, offshore accounts, communications logs. Victor was the field operator. He'd identify military personnel who got too close to the evidence. Maddox, Reeves, 4 others from your unit. Then Grimshaw would eliminate them. Clean, professional, always blamed on combat. Maddox knew, Reese said, more than we thought. Kincaid swiped to scan documents, photos of weapons crates, serial numbers, audio files. We found these on Maddox's personal laptop, heavily encrypted. He'd been investigating for 6 months. Had everything: photos, recordings, shipping manifests. The night before Syria, he contacted a reporter at the Washington Post. Said he had evidence of government corruption, documentary proof. And Duncan found out? Victor was monitoring communications, saw Maddox reaching out to the press, reported back to Duncan. They decided Maddox was too dangerous to live, set up the Syria mission as a trap, specifically to kill him. Reese felt rage building, hot and sharp behind her eyes. Maddox hadn't just stumbled onto evidence. He'd been actively fighting the conspiracy, risking everything to expose the truth. And they'd murdered him for it. Where's Doc? Safe, protective custody. He's been working with Admiral Harrington, compiling everything we have: financial records, kill orders, communications between Duncan and Crimson Syndicate, everything we need to bury them. Why haven't you gone to the FBI? DOJ? Kincaid shook his head. Duncan Stroud is a brigadier general. He's got connections everywhere. FBI, CIA, NSA, congressional oversight committees. If we go through official channels, he'll know within an hour. Evidence will disappear. Witnesses will die. He'll vanish to a country with no extradition treaty, and we'll never touch him. So what's the plan? Tomorrow night, Duncan's hosting a charity fundraiser at his Maryland estate. Private event, 50 guests, minimal security, and Victor will be there, both brothers in one place. Kincaid's eyes went hard. Admiral Harrington is giving us 6 hours. 6 hours before he has to officially report what we know. 6 hours to infiltrate that estate, capture both Strouds, and secure evidence that can't be destroyed, buried, or denied. An unsanctioned raid on a brigadier general's private property. Yes. No legal authority, no backup, no official chain of command. Correct. If we're caught, we'll be charged with treason, domestic terrorism, and about 15 other felonies. Almost certainly. Reese thought about Maddox, his last words. Don't stop. She thought about Reeves, about the 4 others from her unit who died because they knew too much. She thought about her grandfather, who'd taught her that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the easy thing. When do we leave? Kincaid smiled, slow and dangerous. 18 hours. But the doctor says you need at least a week before you're combat ready. We don't have a week. I can function now. Reese gritted her teeth, forced herself upright. Every muscle screamed. Her vision swam. The room tilted sideways for a moment, but she stayed sitting. I can function, she repeated. Kincaid studied her for a long moment, looking for weakness, for hesitation. He wouldn't find any. Your grandfather had that same stubborn streak, he said finally. Saved my life in Kuwait because of it. Nearly killed himself doing it. He stood up, grabbed crutches from the corner. Come on, Sutton's waiting. We've got a lot of work to do. The planning room was 2 levels below ground. No windows, no outside access. Just concrete walls, encrypted computers, and Dr. Parker Sutton, surrounded by enough electronics to run a small war. She'd been awake for at least 30 hours straight, judging by the energy drink cans and the dark circles under her eyes. But her fingers flew across 3 keyboards simultaneously, pulling up satellite imagery, security feeds, architectural blueprints. Phantom, she didn't look up. You look like you got run over by a truck. Feel worse. What have you got? Sutton pulled up an aerial view. Massive estate on the Chesapeake. Main house like something from a magazine. Pool, tennis courts, private dock with 2 boats. Duncan Stroud's playground. Bought with blood money, 300 acres. Main house is here, 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, wine cellar, private theater, gun range, all the toys a corrupt general could want. Security? 12 contractors, private company out of Virginia, ex-military but not Tier 1. Good, but not Delta, not Force Recon. They're professionals, but they're not expecting a serious threat at a charity fundraiser. Government protection? Reese asked. None. Duncan specifically requested no official security, no Secret Service, no military police, no federal agents. He told the Pentagon it was a private event, and he didn't want government presence making his donors uncomfortable. Which means he doesn't want official witnesses to who's attending, Kincaid said. Exactly. Sutton pulled up a guest list, 50 names. Mix of defense contractors, lobbyists, a few congressmen, handful of Pentagon officials. All people who benefit from Duncan's weapons pipeline. All people with something to hide. Where's Victor? Already on site, arrived 8 hours ago. Sutton zoomed in on thermal imaging. He's listed as head of security for the event. Means he'll be armed, mobile, and suspicious. Reese studied the layout. Main gate with guardhouse. Service entrance on the north side. High walls on 3 sides. But the 4th side? The water, she said. Chesapeake Bay. Bingo! Sutton zoomed in on the coastline. Private dock here, 2 boats. The waterline is monitored, but not as heavily as the gates. Security cameras cover the dock approach, but there's a blind spot here. She highlighted a small cove. If you approach underwater, surface in this cove, you've got 200 yards of open ground to the main house. 200 yards is a lot of open ground, Kincaid said. At night, with a party happening, security will be focused on the guests inside and the access points. 2 people moving low and fast could make it. 2 people, Reese said, not 3. Kincaid nodded. We need a diversion, something that pulls security away from the house. I'll be the diversion. Both of them looked at her. You can barely walk, Kincaid started. I don't need to walk. I need to shoot. Reese pointed at the topographical map. There, that ridge line, 1,150 yards from the main house. Wooded, good concealment. I set up with the Barrett, provide overwatch. If things go wrong, I create chaos, pull security away from your position. Sutton measured the distance, checked wind patterns, elevation. It's doable. Good sight lines, multiple escape routes if you need to displace. She looked at Reese. But you're talking about holding a precision rifle for potentially hours with cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder. I've done worse. Kincaid and Sutton exchanged a look, some wordless communication that Reese couldn't read. Fine, Kincaid said, but you're overwatch only. You see trouble, you report it. You don't engage unless I specifically order it. Clear? Clear. Sutton pulled up the interior layout. Duncan's office is here, 2nd floor, east wing. That's where he keeps his personal files. Encrypted servers. Hard evidence. How do we access it? Reese asked. You don't. I do. Remotely. Sutton held up a small device. Looked like a USB drive, but with more components. This is a network bridge. You plug it into any Ethernet port in his office, and I can access his entire system from outside. Download everything. Files, communications, financial records, everything. That's my job, Kincaid said. I go in as catering staff, Fake credentials. Sutton will have me in the system. Slip away from the party, access the office, plant the bridge. What about Victor? Reese asked. That's the complication. Kincaid leaned against the table. We need him alive. Without his testimony, we can't prove Duncan ordered the assassinations. Grimshaw's dead. Can't testify. We need Victor to flip, to give up his brother in exchange for a deal. Reese thought about Victor Stroud, the man who'd sabotaged her rifle at qualification, who'd sent her team into a death trap in Syria, who'd watched Maddox die and done nothing. Every instinct screamed to put a bullet through his head. But Kincaid was right. Dead men couldn't testify. I can take him, Reese said. Non-lethal shot. Incapacitate him. Then you extract while I provide cover. A non-lethal shot from 1,150 yards, Sutton said, on a moving target, at night, with your injuries. That's borderline impossible. Borderline, Reese agreed, but not completely. Kincaid studied her, looking for doubt, for hesitation. If you miss, if you kill him instead of wounding him, we lose our best witness. I won't miss. The certainty in her voice left no room for argument. Kincaid nodded slowly. Okay, here's the timeline. Sutton positions outside the estate in a mobile command vehicle, monitors all communications, hacks security feeds, coordinates extraction. Phantom sets up on the ridgeline at 1900 hours. I infiltrate as catering staff at 2000. By 2100, I'm in Duncan's office. Bridge is planted. Sutton's downloading everything. While that's happening, Phantom takes Victor down. Non-lethal. We grab him, extract via the water, and we're gone before anyone realizes what happened. And if something goes wrong, Sutton asked, then Phantom provides covering fire while we shoot our way out. Kincaid's expression went hard. Either way, we don't leave without Victor, and we don't leave without evidence. 18 hours later, Reese was lying in wet grass on a ridgeline in Maryland, watching a party through a rifle scope. The Barrett M82 was a beautiful weapon, 50 caliber, effective range over a mile, enough stopping power to punch through engine blocks, brick walls, and level 4 body armor. And right now it was aimed at a house full of people who'd never spent a day in combat, who'd never watched friends die, who'd gotten rich selling weapons to terrorists while Marines bled out in the sand. Phantom, radio check. Lima Charlie, Sutton. I have eyes on target. Count 12 security contractors on patrol. Victor Stroud is on the second floor balcony, east side. Copy. Kincaid, status? At the service entrance. Credentials worked. I'm moving to infiltrate. Through her scope, Reese watched Kincaid walk through the service entrance. White catering uniform, carrying a tray of champagne glasses, moving with confidence. Nobody gave him a second look. He disappeared into the house. Now came the hard part, waiting. Kincaid needed 15 minutes to reach the office, 5 more to plant the bridge. Then Sutton needed time to download. 20 minutes minimum, probably 30. Reese settled in, controlled her breathing, ignored the pain in her ribs, focused on the scope. Through the second floor windows, she could see Duncan Stroud, Brigadier General, the man who'd orchestrated Maddox's murder, who'd killed 6 Marines to protect his weapons pipeline. He was laughing, shaking hands with donors, playing the role of the gracious host. She could kill him right now. One shot, end it. But that wasn't the mission. The mission was exposure, evidence, making sure the world knew what he'd done. Dead men couldn't confess. I'm in the office. Kincaid's voice, barely a whisper. Planting the bridge now. Copy, no movement from security. Sutton, you getting signal? Affirmative, I'm in his system. Holy mother of... Sutton's voice went tight. There's terabytes here. Financial records going back 15 years. Kill orders. Communications with Crimson Syndicate. With Russian arms dealers. With Taliban commanders. This is everything. This is enough to put half the Pentagon in prison. How long to download? 15 minutes, maybe 20. There's too much data. We don't have 20 minutes. Security's going to do a sweep in 12 minutes. I need to be out before then. I'm going as fast as I can. Reese scanned the grounds. One of the security contractors was talking into his radio, looking around, suspicious. Kincaid, security's getting active. I think they know something's wrong. Damn it, Sutton, abort the download, take what you've got. I need 5 more minutes, just 5. We don't have 5. The contractor pointed toward the house. 3 more contractors started moving toward the main entrance. Fast, purposeful. They knew. Kincaid, you've got 4 hostiles heading to your position. 30 seconds out. Copy. Sutton, status? 3 minutes. Please, just give me 3 more minutes. Kincaid swore. Phantom, I'm going to have to fight my way out. Be ready to provide covering fire. Wait, Reese's mind raced through options. I can buy you time. How? I'm going loud. Create chaos. Pull security away from your position. Negative. That exposes you. Every hostile on the property will know where you are. We don't have a choice. Sutton needs 3 minutes. Security will be on you in 30 seconds. This is the only play. Silence on the radio. Then Kincaid's voice, resigned but trusting. Do it. Reese shifted her aim, found the lead contractor, the one coordinating the sweep. She wasn't aiming to kill. Not yet. Just to create panic. She fired. The bullet hit 3 feet in front of the contractor. Dirt and grass exploded upward. The man dove for cover, screaming into his radio. Chaos erupted instantly. Guests screaming, security drawing weapons. Everyone looking for the shooter. Reese fired again, hit the front tire of a security SUV. The tire exploded with a sound like a gunshot. Third shot took out a decorative fountain, water spraying everywhere. Nobody was looking at the second-floor office anymore. Everyone was focused on the courtyard, on the attack. Sutton, you've got your 3 minutes. Make them count. Downloading. Keep them distracted. Reese fired methodically. A light fixture, a window, the hood of another vehicle. Not hitting people, just creating destruction. Keeping attention on the wrong threat. But they were adapting. Contractors taking cover. Scanning for her position. Rifles turning toward the ridgeline. Muzzle flashes from the estate. Return fire. Bullets snapping through branches above her head. Too close. She displaced. Moved 50 yards west. Set up again. Fired 3 more shots. Done! Sutton's voice triumphant. I've got everything. Kincaid, exfil now. Copy. Moving. Through her scope, Reese saw Kincaid burst from a side door, running toward the water, toward extraction. Then she saw Victor Stroud, on the second-floor balcony, rifle in hand, tracking Kincaid's movement, about to fire. This was the shot, the one she'd been preparing for. 1,147 yards, moving target, night, wind at 8 miles per hour. Her ribs screaming, her shoulder throbbing. She needed to hit his right shoulder, disable his shooting arm, non-lethal but incapacitating. Margin for error, less than 2 inches. She breathed out, found the space between heartbeats, the stillness her grandfather had taught her. 10% is the shot, 90% is the decision. She squeezed. The Barrett thundered. The bullet flew for 2.3 seconds, hit Victor Stroud in the right shoulder. He spun, dropped his rifle, collapsed, alive, wounded, perfect. Target down. Victor is wounded, non-lethal. You've got 90 seconds before backup arrives. I see him, moving to grab. Kincaid reached Victor, zip-tied his hands behind his back, started dragging him toward the water. But 6 more contractors were coming, heavily armed, moving fast. Kincaid, 6 hostiles, 75 yards from your position. I can't move faster. Victor weighs 200 pounds. Reese made a decision. She started killing. First contractor, headshot. 980 yards, down. Second, third, Fourth, by the time the remaining two realized they were being picked off, Kincaid had reached the boat, had Victor secured, was pulling away from the dock. "I'm clear. Phantom, extract now." Reese grabbed her Barrett, started running. 20 contractors were converging on her position. Maybe more. She'd never make it to the primary extraction point. Time for improvisation. She ran downhill, toward the estate, toward the threat. The opposite direction they'd expect. Hit the perimeter fence, climbed over, despite her ribs screaming, dropped into the estate gardens. Security was looking outward, looking for someone fleeing, not someone moving inward. She worked through the shadows, past panicking guests, past confused contractors, small, injured, covered in dirt and grass. Nobody looked twice, just another victim of the attack. She reached the far side of the property. The cove where Kincaid had stashed the emergency extraction boat was 10 feet from the water when someone grabbed her arm. She spun, Sig Sauer drawn, aimed, at Brigadier General Duncan Stroud, unarmed, alone, standing 3 feet away. "Corporal Calloway," his voice was calm, almost amused. "I wondered if it was you. On the ground, hands behind your head, now." "Or what? You'll shoot me?" He smiled. "We both know you won't. You need me alive. For testimony, for evidence. You kill me, and all you have is my brother's word against mine. And who's going to believe a traitor over a brigadier general?" Reese's finger tightened on the trigger. He was right. They needed him alive. But God, she wanted to shoot him. "Sutton," she said into her radio, "confirm, do we need Duncan alive?" "Negative. We've got everything. Bank records, communications, kill orders with his digital signature, video files, audio recordings. We don't need his testimony. We have documentary proof." Reese looked at Duncan, saw understanding dawn on his face. "You don't need me," he said slowly. "No, we don't." "Then you're going to kill me." "No," Reese lowered her pistol slightly. "I'm going to give you a choice, the same choice you gave Maddox. Come with me, stand trial, face justice, or run." "Run? Why would I run?" "Because if you run, that's admission of guilt. Your career ends tonight, your legacy dies, everything you built collapses. But if you come with me, you get a lawyer, a trial. Maybe you claim you were following orders. Maybe you cut a deal. Maybe you only spend 20 years in prison instead of life." She paused. "Either way, the world knows what you did. Either way, you face consequences. You just get to choose how." Duncan stared at her, calculating, weighing options. Then he ran, sprinted toward the main house, toward his security, toward the illusion of safety. Reese didn't chase him, just got in the boat, started the motor, pulled away from the dock. Behind her, she heard Duncan Stroud screaming orders, heard security mobilizing, heard the sound of a powerful man realizing his power was already gone. 3 miles offshore, she met Kincaid and Sutton. Victor Stroud was zip-tied in the boat, gagged, glaring at her with pure hatred. "Did you get Duncan?" Kincaid asked. "Didn't need to." Reese looked at Sutton. "You got everything?" Sutton held up a hard drive. 20 years of evidence, every crime, every murder, every dollar. Financial records from 12 offshore accounts. Kill orders with his authorization. Communications with Crimson Syndicate, with arms dealers, with Taliban commanders. Video of him inspecting weapons shipments. Audio of him ordering hits. She smiled. Savage. Duncan Stroud is done. Even if he runs to a country with no extradition, his name is poison. His career is over. His legacy is destroyed. And everyone who helped him is going down too. They motored into darkness. Behind them, the Maryland coast lit up like a Christmas tree. Helicopters, Coast Guard boats, police lights, but they were already ghosts, already gone. 4 months later, February 2026, the news broke on a Tuesday morning. Every channel, every website, every newspaper. Pentagon corruption scandal. Brigadier General charged with weapons trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder. Duncan Stroud's face on every screen, handcuffed, being led into federal court. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable. Financial records showing $2.3 billion in illegal weapons sales over 15 years. Kill orders with his digital signature. 6 Marines murdered to protect the conspiracy. The government tried to spin it, tried to claim it was a rogue operation. A few bad actors, but the evidence was public, leaked to a dozen journalists simultaneously. The people knew. The world knew. 4 months later, the trials concluded. Duncan Stroud, life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Conspiracy, 6 counts of murder. Arms trafficking, treason, 14 other Pentagon officials implicated. Victor Stroud, life imprisonment plus 150 years. Direct involvement in assassination of 6 United States Marines. Conspiracy, obstruction of justice. Wade Grimshaw's assets, seized. $40 million traced back to payments from the Stroud brothers. Slash Reese watched the sentencing from a cabin in Montana. Different mountain, different view, but the same isolation she'd known 6 months ago. Except this time, she wasn't hiding. She was healing. Kincaid walked in. No more cast, walking normally. The leg had healed well. "How you feeling?" "Like I just burned my entire life to the ground to do the right thing." "Yeah," he sat down next to her. "That's about right." He pulled out his phone, showed her a message from Admiral Harrington. Officially, wanted for unauthorized raid on government property. Unofficially, new identities being processed, relocation assistance approved, clean slate. Personally, Garrison would be proud, so would Maddox. "Harrington's giving us a choice," Kincaid said. "We can disappear, new names, new lives, somewhere quiet, or there's a job offer, Marine Corps Base Quantico, Scout Sniper School. They need instructors." He paused. "Harrington says he can make the paperwork disappear if we want to teach. Pass on what we know. Make sure the next generation doesn't repeat our mistakes." Reese thought about it. About her grandfather, teaching her to shoot when she was 12. About Maddox, teaching her that the decision mattered more than the shot. About legacy. About what it meant to pass something forward. "I'll think about it." 6 weeks later, she stood at the Quantico rifle range, watching a young Marine struggle with qualification. Corporal Sloan Tierney, 22 years old, 5'2", maybe 110 pounds. She just missed her 5th shot, was starting to panic. Reese walked over. Tierney snapped to attention. "At ease. What's your name?" "Corporal Sloan Tierney, ma'am." "What's the problem, Tierney?" "The problem is, I can't shoot, ma'am." Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm not good enough. I don't belong here." Reese studied her, saw herself 5 years ago. Same fear, same doubt, same desperate need to prove something. "You know what I think the problem is?" "No, ma'am." "The problem is you decided you can't shoot before you pulled the trigger. You made the decision to fail before you gave yourself a chance to succeed." Reese picked up a rifle from the rack. The M40A6, Maddox's rifle, the one he'd taught her on. "This belonged to my mentor, Gunnery Sergeant Hollis Maddox, best Marine I ever knew. He taught me something important." She handed the rifle to Tierney. 10% is the shot. 90% is the decision you make before you touch the trigger." Tierney looked confused. "I don't understand, ma'am." "You're focusing on the target. You should be focusing on the decision. Decide you're good enough. Decide you belong. Decide you're going to make this shot. Then the actual shooting becomes simple mechanics. What if I miss? Then you miss, but you'll miss knowing you decided to be great. That's better than hitting the target while believing you're not good enough." Tierney took the rifle, looked at the target 1,000 yards downrange. breathed, settled into position, found her sight picture, and squeezed. Bullseye, dead center, her face lit up with pure joy. I did it! I actually— You decided to do it, Reese corrected gently. Everything else was just following through. Remember that. Every time you pick up a rifle, every time you face something impossible, the decision comes first. The action comes second. Tierney nodded, eyes bright. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. She ran off to tell the other candidates. Reese watched her go, smiled. Kincaid walked up beside her. You're good at this, teaching. Grandfather taught me. Maddox refined it. I'm just passing it on. That's what legacy is, Kincaid said. Not the shots you make, not the enemies you kill. It's the knowledge you pass forward, the people you teach, making sure the next generation is better than you were. Reese thought about that, about 3 generations of Callaways, about the weight of the name she carried. Kincaid, can I ask you something? Shoot. Do you think Maddox would be proud of what we did? Kincaid was quiet for a moment, then he put a hand on her shoulder. I think Maddox knew exactly who you were, what you were capable of. That's why he made you promise not to stop. Not because he thought you'd quit, but because he knew you wouldn't. He knew you'd finish what he started. He knew you'd do whatever it took to make things right. He paused. That's why he chose you. Not because you were the best sniper, but because you were the best person. Reese felt tears sting her eyes, blinked them back. I miss him. Yeah, me too. And your grandfather, and everyone else we've lost along the way. Kincaid looked out at the range, at the young Marines training. But they're not really gone. They're here, in the lessons we teach, in the decisions we make, in the legacy we pass forward. That's immortality. Not living forever, but teaching something that does. 2 weeks later, Reese stood in Arlington National Cemetery. Early morning, fog still hanging over the headstones. She walked to Maddox's grave first. The stone was simple. Name, rank, dates. And below, the words she'd requested. A warrior who never quit. A mentor who never failed. She knelt down, placed his dog tags on the stone, the ones Doc had given her that terrible night in Syria. She'd carried them for almost a year. I finished it, Gunny. Her voice was quiet. Got them all. Duncan Stroud, Victor, Grimshaw. Everyone who hurt the team. They're in prison. Life sentences. They'll die behind bars. The wind rustled through the trees. You were right. About everything. The decision mattering more than the shot. About not stopping. About doing the right thing even when it costs everything. She touched the cold stone. I'm teaching now, at Quantico, training the next generation, passing on what you taught me, what grandfather taught me. I think you'd approve. She stood, saluted, held it for 30 seconds. Rest easy, Gunny. Mission accomplished. Next, her father's grave. Captain Rowan Calloway, Marine Force Recon, killed in Mogadishu, October 3rd, 1993. She placed her silver star on his headstone. This is yours, Dad. Everything I did because you taught me what sacrifice means. You never met me, but you shaped me. I hope I made you proud. Finally, her grandfather's grave. Master Gunnery Sergeant Garrison Ghost Calloway. 91 confirmed kills. Kuwait, 1991. She sat down next to the stone, traced his name with her fingers. Hey, Ghost, it's been almost 4 years since you left. Feels like yesterday. She pulled out the photo Kincaid had given her. Young Kincaid and young Ghost. Kuwait, desert camis, both of them grinning. Kincaid told me the whole story, how you saved his entire unit with 3 shots in 6 seconds, how you didn't even tell him you were there until it was over. That's so you. Do the impossible, then act like it was nothing. She set the photo against the headstone. They're naming the new Scout Sniper School after you. The Ghost Calloway Center for Excellence. Every Marine who goes through will learn your techniques, your methods, your philosophy. You're going to be teaching Marines for the next 100 years. A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I met Grimshaw. He said you taught him everything, and he was right. You were brilliant, the best there ever was. But he learned your skills without your honor. He took what you taught him and twisted it into something evil. She paused. I learned both, the skills and the honor, and now I'm passing both forward, making sure the next generation understands that being deadly isn't enough. You have to be righteous too. She stood up, looked at the 3 graves, 3 generations of warriors. Distance is mercy. Patience is justice. 1 bullet, 1 reckoning. She saluted all 3 graves, held it. I'll carry it forward, I promise. Then she walked away without looking back. Behind her, the sun rose over Arlington. Gold for the student who best embodied technical skill and moral character. After the ceremony, she found Reese. Staff Sergeant Calloway, I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. You did the work, Tierney. I just reminded you that you could. I want to be like you. Will you teach me advanced techniques? Reese looked at her, saw the hunger, the determination, the same fire she'd had at 22. Yes, but first let me tell you about my grandfather. They walked to the range, sunset turning the sky orange and gold. Reese and Sloan, teacher and student, 1 rifle between them. Reese showed her the yarn wind indicator, the one Ghost had used in Kuwait, the one Reese had used at her qualification. My grandfather used this in Desert Storm. No electronics, no rangefinders, just string and observation. He made 91 kills with tools this simple. Sloan tied the yarn to her rifle, watched it flutter. Why not use the modern equipment? Because equipment fails, batteries die, electronics break, but your brain, your training, your instincts, those are eternal. Master the fundamentals and you'll never be helpless. They shot until dark, Reese teaching, Sloan learning. As the sun disappeared, Reese's phone buzzed. Encrypted message from Kincaid. Need to talk. Urgent. She stepped away, called him. What's wrong? Maybe nothing, maybe something. Kincaid's voice was tight. Sutton's been monitoring dark web chatter. There's talk about Operation Timber Sycamore, about a Phase 2. Reese felt ice in her stomach. What kind of Phase 2? We don't know yet, but the Duncan Stroud investigation only caught 14 Pentagon officials. Sutton thinks there might be more, a lot more, and they're not shutting down. They're adapting. Evidence? Circumstantial. But 6 weeks ago, a shipment of Stinger missiles went missing from a depot in Germany. 2 weeks ago, a T-4 rockets disappeared from a base in Kuwait. Same MO, same serial number patterns, same shipping routes through Crimson Syndicate front companies. Reese closed her eyes. How big? We don't know, but if it's the same scale as Timber Sycamore, billions of dollars, hundreds of millions in weapons. And we only caught the field operators, Duncan and Victor. The people at the top, the ones really running this, they're still out there. Silence on the line. Then Reese said, when do we start? We don't. Not yet. Right now it's just intelligence gathering. Sutton's building a case. When we have enough, Harrington will decide next steps. How long? Weeks, maybe months. Kincaid paused. But Reese, if this is real, if Timber Sycamore is still running at a higher level, we're going to need you again. The Ghost's granddaughter, the Phantom. Reese looked back at the range, at Sloan, cleaning the rifle with the same careful precision Reese had taught her, at the legacy being passed forward. I'll be ready, she ended the call. Walked back to Sloan. Everything okay, ma'am? Sloan asked. Yeah, everything's fine. They finished cleaning the rifles, packed up the equipment, started walking back to the barracks. Ma'am, Sloan said, can I ask you something? Sure. That award, the Garrison Calloway Excellence Award, your grandfather must have been an incredible Marine. He was. The best I ever knew. Did he teach you everything? All the techniques you've been showing me? Reese thought about Ghost, about sitting on his ranch in Montana when she was 12, learning to shoot, learning to be still, learning that the decision mattered more than the shot. He taught me how to shoot, but more importantly, he taught me why. He taught me that being deadly isn't enough. You have to know what you're fighting for, what you're protecting, what you're willing to sacrifice. She looked at Sloan. Skills make you dangerous. Purpose makes you powerful. Honor makes you worth remembering. My grandfather had all three. That's what I'm trying to pass on to you. Sloan nodded slowly, processing. They walked in silence for a moment. Then Reese said, tomorrow, 0530, range. I'm going to teach you the same drill my grandfather taught me. 1,000 yards. Iron sights. No scope. No electronics. Just you, the rifle, and the fundamentals. Sloane's eyes went wide. That's incredibly difficult, ma'am. Yes, it is. That's why we're doing it. Because one day you'll be in a situation where all your equipment fails. Your scope breaks, your rangefinder dies, your radio goes dead, and the only thing standing between your Marines and the enemy will be you and your training. Reese stopped walking, looked Sloan in the eye. When that day comes, I need to know you'll make the shot. Not because you have the best equipment, but because you've mastered the fundamentals so completely that you don't need equipment. Sloan stood straighter. I'll be there, ma'am. 0530. Good. Dismissed. Sloan saluted, walked away toward the barracks. Reese watched her go, then pulled out her phone, looked at Kincaid's message again. Timber, Sycamore, Phase 2. She thought about Duncan Stroud, about Victor, about Grimshaw, about the conspiracy that had murdered Maddox and 5 others. They'd cut off the head, but apparently the body was still moving. Reese looked up at the stars, at the night sky that looked the same here as it had in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Montana. Guess we're not done yet, Gunny, she whispered. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl called. And Reese Calloway, the ghost's granddaughter, the phantom, walked back to her quarters, ready to teach, ready to fight, ready to do whatever came next. Because that's what Callaways did. That's what Marines did. That's what warriors did. They made the decision, then they took the shot, and they never, ever stopped.